let's see if we can give you a ground shot. Okay, yeah, no, some people are going to stay. Yeah. Let me try to place you in front of one of these banisters. I'm trying to put my camera in a position that he is solid, and if people begin to run, we can hang on to something. Let's stay over here. So I don't know. It's a little bit dark, but you can see the person banging at the top of the dumpster at the entranceway. That's what's going on here at the detention center. Much smaller crowd, no question about it. A lot of gas on the air. Did they gas recently? How long ago did they gas?
I feel like the last time was maybe like 15 minutes ago.
15 minutes ago?
Whenever they were moving the trash can.
Now, I mean, you look like a really nice lady who would never be in such a situation at this point here right now, if I may say.
Nobody should be in this position, but we've got to come out and we've got to speak out, or else it'll never change.
You feel that strongly about it? Right. Thank you. Be careful. Be safe. And I wanted to show her to you because this is not the kind of person that usually I see at these things. Here she is. No, here she is. This is, yeah, no, this woman doesn't even have a gas mask. Yeah, she's, you know, she has a, I mean, she looks like a really nice college student type, you know, I mean, it just, but there's all types here. Although at this point of the game, it does dwindle to people who have done this before, but you can see people are also coming out who haven't. Now, we're trying to give you images from the ground of what they're doing with the dumpster and how close they're trying to get. Now, you see them putting up the orange blockades or moving them. They were kind of moving those around to see if they could, you know, the officers, I don't know if you can see that from this perspective. Now we got the crowd coming back, so it's a little harder. Let me see. Let's see, give us a second and bear with us. Thank you. Hey, listen, this is a cough drop. This will help you.
Thank you.
Sure. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, no problem. Just stay safe. Sorry, I was giving a cough drop to one of the people. Well, because what happens is when this stuff gets in you and you can't breathe, cough drops help you clear your, and you panic less. You think you can breathe now, and you can also talk easier. Let me see if I can show you. Al, let's move a little bit this way. I don't want to get too close to this because but they have created a pile of just stuff in front of the door. This is, remember I told you they were bringing the barricades and just, they're just piling on a bunch of stuff on top of, in the front door there. Through that, you'll see like boxes and signs and all kinds of things that they're just piling up there. Now, I have not seen any more federal officers outside. I think they're all inside at this point, but at some point they may come out. Now, hopefully we can get somebody from the department to actually call you back and go on air on this, because things have changed. The laws have changed with some court decisions, but I know that they have to give them enough time to be able to
One, two, three, four, five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mm-hmm. All right, man. Thanks.
yeah. Okay, so now, I don't know if you can hear me, but we got the crowd coming back this way from the buses. Can Marla, can you hear us at all? I don't know if you can hear us. This is great. Okay, now check this out. They're moving now those barricades, the orange barricades, from the front of the detention center where they were using them to the buses, to that area. So now the skirmish line, as it were, from the point of view of the protesters, is going to be that area. And they're moving quite a bit of the of their equipment, as it were. And as a matter of fact, if we turn around right now, Al, follow me. We have a few minutes here before. Check out the front of the detention center before it gets crowded again. They've moved all those barricades to that side where the buses are. Isn't it unbelievable? But you can see now what they use the barricades for, and they'll move these too if they feel they need them. But you can see that's the dumpster you were talking about. Excuse me. And you can see that all the people are moving to the new line, which is going to be where those buses were. That's where everybody's headed and taking their stuff. And now that they've heard the order of dispersal, and they're obviously not going to heed it. My apologies, that gas is rough. No, we're good. We're good. We're good. So far, so good. So yeah, everybody's moving over to that side. You've got motorcycles that got through, and they're also going to join them now. Some of the motorcycles. So we're probably going to have a long night ahead of us with LAPD asking these people to move. These people not necessarily moving, and if they move, they will start trying to corral them into different groups. Is usually what they do, so they can break down the large group into smaller groups. And but that will not be happening for a little while. They're still trying to give people a chance to get out of here.
Yeah, Pat, we are at Alameda over the 101 freeway right now. This is where you can see the huge LAPD response, which has come as well as the spotlight you see from LAPD's helicopter, after a bunch of protesters here came up to onto the loading dock, the front door really, of the Federal Detention Center, and started throwing things at officers there. They responded with tear gas, and there was a bit of a confrontation there, but it doesn't seem that anyone was injured. A lot of the protesters have kind of moved away from that loading dock, and now they're kind of in the face of LAPD. You can see they responded with their skirmish line, and they have just within the last couple of minutes issued a dispersal order. I'm sure they are giving that order over the loudspeaker on the helicopter right now, telling protesters here that if they do not disperse within the next 10 minutes, they do risk being arrested. So we'll see if that is enough to get these people to disperse. It's also worth noting that this looks to be either a splinter group or an entirely different group from the protesters that we saw earlier this afternoon, the more than 10,000 people that were protesting peacefully as they marched around downtown LA.
All right, it's 9 o'clock on this Friday night. Friday night. That means it's time for the Live Zone Prime Time. I'm producer Chris. That is Tony P. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're watching on Fox Local or Fox 5 DC's YouTube page. Tony P., how are you?
Here, my friend, I have to tell you, it's like Groundhog Day, and we're getting close to Groundhog Day, by the way.
We are.
It's literally like Groundhog Day.
Literally,
it just keeps
Sunday?
the same, you can wake up, the same sunshine, and the sun ain't bringing any heat.
The same
because now I'm absorbing
cold temperatures
All
out
I
there.
got is the
Tony P. finally
full...
dressed for the weather. He's
Yes.
not wearing his tan suit.
Yes, but I am still wearing the shoes because they match everything here. But like, here's like kind of my snow and like, I don't know, black style pants here that look very much, again, very comfortable for this time. They're dress pants, but they are just very warm, which you need a lot of.
Very fashion forward. That's what I always say.
I mean,
about
I need to
Tony
absorb
P.
that heat, my friend. How you feeling though? I'm loving this.
You know,
This is very like.
Thank you very much. It's the dude inspired. If you know,
right.
you know exactly. All right, Tony P. We got to get right to some breaking news that we're following right now. We're taking you live to the West Coast. This is downtown LA. 2 live pictures up right now, both from the same scene. That's where anti-ICE protesters have hit the streets and are clashing with police, according to reporters on the ground. I will just say, despite the heavy police presence, Tony P., we have been watching this for about the last 15 to 20 minutes, and things do seem relatively peaceful right now. Obviously, these protesters are spreading a passionate message for them, waving flags. We have seen some 4-letter words spray painted on dumpsters, blocking traffic, blocking city buses. However, it has appeared peaceful right now. These are live pictures from our sister station in LA. The message, you don't see it anymore, but the message that was on this screen and spray painted on the side of that dumpster, loud and clear,
what the goal was.
Yes, for what the goal of these protesters is. Fox is reporting that the LAPD has issued a citywide tactical alert because of this situation, Tony P.
Yes,
but
and
this is far from the only city that we have seen these protests, not necessarily to this level, but this has been happening all across the country today.
Of course, right here in our backyard here in D.C. Earlier this afternoon, I was actually walking by it, and I got a few minutes to see it just to kind of get some observation at Gallery Place Station. There was a protest today, a walking protest all the way through downtown. I call it kind of the DuPont Circle corridor. They went all the way through that section of town, downtown, towards the White House to protest ICE and the shooting and killing of Alex Preddy, as well as Renee Good, and the ongoing ICE actions and, you know, the tragic situations happening in Minneapolis. The protests are spreading to D.C., to L.A., and this will dovetail with a lot of protests across the country and in our own backyard starting on Saturday, because today, January 30th, was the day of, they call it the economic blackout, where it was organized by a lot of different organizations. The First Amendment Coalition was one of them. I think Mobilize US was part of this too, where it was an economic strike, where people, if they could, they wouldn't work, they wouldn't use social media, they wouldn't shop, they wouldn't buy anything. The goal is to economically starve the country, the economy, to send a message about ICE and its presence across the country. So a lot of folks were out there protesting as well today in D.C. and around the country, and we're seeing that now. But tomorrow is more of a organized day of protest across the country, from the cities to suburbs like Fairfax, Virginia, and Vienna will be taking place tomorrow. So a lot of things that are still happening. We're coming up on a week since the tragic death of Alex Preddy. So we're thinking about everybody in Minneapolis, but also watching these protests continue to grow while there's stuff on Capitol Hill, bills being passed, DHS not being funded at the moment, and just the overall political climate that we're seeing here, Chris. And it is continuing to grow. Protesters and advocates are not taking their foot off the gas.
No, not at all. And like Tony said, you know, we have seen these across the country right now. So far, peaceful.
Yeah.
Hopefully they stay that way.
Yep.
We will keep an eye on this situation.
I
will say we've been listening to the reporter on the ground from our sister station out in LA, and based on what we have heard her coughing, there may be some level of tear gas in the air.
There was some tear gas. I
Not
think
a huge shock when it comes to a protest of this size. Like I said, we will keep an eye on this situation in the meantime, and we will keep a live picture up as long as we can. In the meantime, though, I do want to get to one of our big stories back here at home, and that is the Brendan Banfield murder trial. We have been following this story not only for the weeks that it has been ongoing, this trial has been going on, but also the years since this case developed. But today, jury deliberations officially got underway. They did not reach a verdict before the end of the day, so those deliberations will resume next week. Banfield, you will remember, is accused of murdering his wife and another man. The jury went home for the weekend after deliberating for just a few hours this afternoon. Fox 5's Sydney Persing was out at the courthouse for us today. Bob Barner taking some time off. I want to get to some of the highlights from her. right now.
Brendan Banfield's fate remains in limbo tonight. After nearly 4 hours of deliberation, the judge sent these jurors home, which means we're not going to know until Monday now whether Banfield walks free or spends up to the rest of his life in prison. This trial, of course, has been the subject of so much national attention. There were folks inside court today who have no connection to this case, but they wanted to be inside the courtroom in case that verdict came down today. Court began this morning with jury instructions, then closing arguments from prosecutors. Prosecutor Jenna Sands doubled down that in 2023, Banfield killed his wife Christine and Joe Ryan, a stranger who he lured to their home to set up as a fall guy using a ruse of a fetish-driven sexual encounter with Christine. They told jurors Brendan wanted to leave his wife for their au pair, Juliana Margulies, with whom he was having an affair. You'll remember she took a plea deal and became the prosecutor's star witness. But prosecutors told jurors today, don't just believe what she said. Look at the digital data, blood smear forensics, and other evidence we've shown you since this trial began.
Brendan stabbed Christine, let her bleed out on the floor, and then dripped, smeared, and wiped her blood on Joseph Ryan's body to make it look like he had attacked Christine. And it took a little bit of doing, but here we are, and it's his turn to be held accountable.
Then it was the defense's turn. Banfield's attorney, John Carroll, reiterated what Banfield said himself when he took the stand, that he's innocent. Banfield, he said, shot Joe Ryan in self-defense after he came home to find Ryan stabbing Christine. For close to 90 minutes today, Carroll tried to poke holes in the Commonwealth's argument, saying Margulies' story was bought and paid for, pointing to the fact that she'd met with TV producers. He told jurors certain evidence wasn't tested for DNA, and that prosecutors rushed to judgment, ignoring or even manipulating evidence to fit their orchestrated narrative.
Lie and manipulate to get someone to make a statement. That's not discovering the truth. That's planting the truth.
Banfield faces 2 aggravated murder charges now, a firearm and child endangerment charge. If convicted, he faces life in prison. So, of course, we'll be back in court on Monday to see how this all unfolds. And one thing we'll really be watching for is the length of time it takes the jury to deliberate. Again, it was about 4 hours today. Of course, it's not a hard and fast rule, but oftentimes when a jury takes longer, it could indicate that there's a split among the jurors. So that's something we'll be watching closely. Again, we'll be right back in court Monday morning at 10.
That was Fox 5's Sydney Persing reporting for us live. Criminal defense attorney A. Scott Bolden joining us now live with more on this case. Scott, thanks so much for spending some time with us here on the Live Zone Primetime.
Absolutely. Good evening.
Good evening. So you heard Sydney say there at the end, it's not a hard and fast rule, but sometimes when these juries are deliberating longer, it could be either good or bad news for the prosecution. What do you make of this case so far?
Well, as a former prosecutor, we used to say if they deliberate long, they deliberate wrong. And so whether it's a simple case or complicated case, this is a pretty complicated case. I think the first couple of hours and even on Monday, they're going to try to go through all of the evidence. And the question ultimately is there reasonable doubt, right? Is there doubt as to whether the defendant committed this crime? Was this a real staged event? Or was it a real event? Was it staged or real? If it was staged, then the defendant is going to be found guilty. If it was real and he came home, then it's self-defense, then he's going to be acquitted or should be acquitted. But the fact of the matter is there are 2 big issues for the defense that they have in their favor. One, the defendant's fingerprints were never found on the knife, the stabbing weapon. Why not if he's accused of stabbing her? Secondly, his digital fingerprints are nowhere on the computer and the fetish sex site. At least they can't confirm that. And if that's the case, and then thirdly, you've got the witness, his paramour or his au pair, who has the least credibility of all because she's going to get time served if he gets convicted. And so she's cut her deal. And so I think those 3 factors are going to play into the jury's mindset. But those 2 factors, the lack of fingerprint and the lack of digital fingerprint, that's reasonable doubt already, quite frankly. We'll have to see what the jury does.
Do you think there are other actions or reactions by the jury during the deliberation process beyond timing of how long they deliberate that can sort of give tea leaves of where they're leaning, or is it mainly about the timing of it?
it's all prognostication. Normally, and I've sat on 2 juries in the District of Columbia, the first 4 to 6 hours or 2 to 4 hours, you're just getting all the evidence and walking through the case. You can either take a preliminary vote now, or you can take a preliminary vote internally after you've gone through all the evidence. Either way, you want to get a feel for where everybody is. That'll tell you a lot, because if it's 50-50 or 90-10, you know who you got to work on or not work on. And in this type of case, where there's so much confusion, and there's so much so much weight for the defendant and for the prosecution, it's going to be hard to sort through. And as I said before, there's enough for them to find him not guilty just based on reasonable doubt. Now, that doesn't mean he didn't do it. That just means the prosecution can't prove it. There's a big difference there.
So, Scott, I'm trying to... yeah, so
it's a complicated case.
It's a complicated case.
See it in our faces?
And do you anticipate the jury needing some more information or wanting to re-clarify a couple points of evidence? Because this is really boiled down, and we talked about this a little earlier, to a he said, she said, she said. It's basically Brendan Banfield's story versus his wife's story, and she, unfortunately, is no longer with us to tell her story himself. So it's what everyone is saying she did, and then it's the au pair story too. It's a lot to sort through, and is there enough confusion there, basically, to that reasonable doubt and not meet that threshold?
Here's another saying as litigators when we try cases. Lies have no details, right? And if a lie has no detail, it's a lie. So both sides are going to be looking for corroboration of the facts, corroboration of each other's story. Either you're going to have to believe one or the other, but if you can't believe one or the other and you throw your hands up and say, I just don't know, right? That's also reasonable doubt. And so I think the prosecution has a real challenge here. They bought into the au pair story. They cut a deal with her. She did relatively well on the stand, if you will, but her story ran out in a few instances. For example, why did she leave the 4-year-old downstairs while she went upstairs? How did she get the gun to fire the second shot, killing Ryan, the alleged intruder, if you will? And then what was even more powerful, I think, is when the police went back 30 days later after arresting the defendant, she had moved all of her things into the master bedroom. That wasn't a good look. But having an affair with an au pair doesn't mean you're a murderer. And I got to tell you, he could have gotten a divorce or gotten out of his marriage to be with the au pair for a lot less than killing the individual. Remember, he's law enforcement. My goodness, this is a gory way to end a relationship or a marriage in and of itself. You know, you get over the financial impact, you go be with who you want to be with, but you know that love thing is complicated, and in this case, it was treacherous.
If you're sitting at counsel table with Brendan Banfield, just to think about this for a minute, what are some of the prosecution's arguments that might be scaring you as a defense attorney or giving cause for pause, basically, in case this may not go in terms of an acquittal?
Well, the same things that give him strength, what should bother him about the prosecution's case is that while he didn't have his digital fingerprint wasn't ruled out either. One. Okay. Two, he did have this illicit affair. Not illegal to have an illicit affair, but it can be frowned upon by still people who are married and some of the more conservative jurors. I'd be concerned about that. And then why are we even here? I mean, why does he come back? Because he got a call. If this was staged and it was all done to do this, then it fits nicely into a package of guilt. It fits nicely that he killed her and then tried to make it out like it was self-defense. On the other side, you got an au pair who's got every reason to lie because of her deal, and she's the homewrecker, or the alleged homewrecker, if you will. I think what the defendant did on the witness stand was really interesting because they couldn't corroborate it, but he still was able to get it in. That when the police arrived, he was holding his wife's neck, and he testified that she had said, "Put pressure on my wounds." So he's still having a conversation with her. If he was a cold-blooded killer, he wouldn't be trying to keep her alive. At least if I'm the defense lawyer, I would be arguing that to the jury. And if I'm the jury, I'd be listening to that, because in the end, you want the stories to make sense. One or the other's got to make more sense than the other, no matter what.
Scott, my final question for you. How much of this case do you think is going to come down to what a sort of, a jury being swayed by some of the, the sordid details of this case? Or do you think the prosecution and the defense are trying their best just to say, remove that, judgment-free zone, just look at the facts of this case?
Well, the prosecution is certainly trying to do that. The defense is trying to distract no matter what. The defendant's testimony also was interesting in this regard, that his wife had a pattern in practice or prior involvement in wanting to have sexually violent encounters, if you will. He can't prove that, but that's sworn testimony. Does the jury believe that or don't they? But the prosecution wants the jury to use their common sense. Look at the facts. We've corroborated these facts. Whether you believe the witness or not, there's corroboration here in regard to the au pair story. And then use your common sense. Does it make sense? We'll have to see what they do. You're going to have jurors all over the place preliminarily in that prelim vote. But at some point, it's all going to come together, and either they're going to do a unified vote of guilty or not guilty, or they're going to be a hung jury. My best estimation is this is going to take some time, and you might get a hung jury out of this because there's enough. All you got to do is hold one, and there's enough here for the defense to hold at least one juror.
All right.
Wow.
Criminal defense attorney A. Scott Bolden, thank you so much for spending some time with us and lending your expertise to us. Of course, we will stay on top of this case.
Yes,
we will
absolutely.
have much more for you when the jury resumes on Monday right here on Fox Local, Fox 5 DC's YouTube page, and of course streaming on Fox 5's TikTok account. In the meantime, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to leave you with some live pictures from LA where those anti-ICE protests still hitting the streets of LA, clashing with police right now. Tony and I are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to head back out to LA. We'll have the latest on these protests. We're also going to check in with Fox's Ashley Dvorkin for more on the tragic passing of actress Catherine O'Hara. We'll be right back. Ashley, it's Chris. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Chris.
Hi. Thank you so much for spending some time with us.
No, of course. Thank you.
All right. We're going to come back. We're going to just show some more of these live pictures, and then we'll bring you into the conversation.
Okay, of course. No worries. And you have some role I'm just going to go through, or you'll just set me up. I'll just go through her.
Totally.
Many amazing roles.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right, welcome back to the Live Zone Primetime on this Friday night. Right now, you are taking a live look at the streets of downtown Los Angeles. That is where anti-ICE protesters have flooded the streets. Right now, it appears police are pushing them back from where they had blocked traffic. There are reports that they are clashing with police. We are keeping an eye on some of those reports. You see that heavy line, use all of those police cars right there and that line of officers,
massive.
Tony P. definitely dramatic images. We are keeping an eye on all of this throughout the course of this evening.
Yeah, so it seemed that LAPD gave a call to disperse about 25 minutes or 20 minutes ago, and there's been some new laws passed in California where the police have to give more than adequate time for people to disperse, get out of the area, be able to, call a ride or walk home, things of that nature. So I think that's part of this, and maybe potentially they have run up to that threshold of that time to disperse, where now police are actively pushing the perimeter back using officers or the police personnel in those cars that you're seeing in the picture here. So again, I think it's becoming more just pushing the perimeter back as they are protesting outside of a federal detention center where there are cases, immigration cases that are conducted, and containment is done in that area. So I think it's one thing to focus on, and I think there was tear gas deployed. We did hear some of that from our great reporters down at Fox 11, and they did mention in the narration behind it that at the beginning there was some projectiles being thrown at federal agents in near that immigration containment center or federal building. So that was one of the situations that maybe got out of hand, but for the most part, everything is very, very peaceful. Just looks like a typical pushing of the perimeter after getting that call to disperse.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on this throughout the course of the Live Zone Primetime. But we do want to get to some other news that we've been following out of LA tonight. And this is sad news for fans of comedy and
a lot of movies.
Hollywood. Take a listen.
I would rather talk about
It's cute, Delia.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Otho, are you doing
Work
this?
all night and a drink a rum.
All right, so selfishly, that is one of my favorite scenes of all time, featuring some of the greatest music of all time. That, of course, a clip from Beetlejuice, the entertainment world mourning the loss of one of its most distinctive voices and one of the greatest movie moms of all time. We are talking about Catherine O'Hara, who died suddenly today. She was 71 years old, and tonight the tributes are pouring in. So for more on her life and career, Fox's Ashley Dvorkin joins us now live from Hollywood. Ashley, thank you so much for spending some time with us here on the Live Zone Primetime.
Of course. Thank you, Chris, Tony P. That also is one of my favorite scenes of any movie of all time. Catherine O'Hara, such an iconic actress, a legendary comedian, and friends, and those who worked with her, and fans. So many are mourning this loss today. And we're reflecting on her career. So her career, which started on stage where she perfected that improv, she began in the theater in the 70s with the Second City Theater Troupe. That's where she met Eugene Levy. And the two would go on to work together throughout their careers. They also starred in her debut film, 1980's Double Negative. And then in 1988, O'Hara brought the hilariously eccentric Delia Dietz to life in Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, as you just saw. And it was a role that she would later reprise in the sequel, Beetlejuice in 2024. So in 1990, she also played one of the most famous movie moms in one of the biggest holiday films of all time, Home Alone. So Kate McAllister in Home Alone and Home Alone 2. And then later in the 90s, she became part of another famous troupe when she was cast in her first Christopher Guest movie. So all of those mockumentaries, which featured very much a lot of the same cast, including Eugene Levy again, she reunited with Guest and the group. They worked on Waiting for Guffman, Best in Show, her and Eugene Levy. I don't know if you remember the Terrier song. That was Best in Show. That was another great scene of theirs. 2003's A Mighty Wind, and For Your Consideration, again, all those Christopher Guest movies. And in 2015, she and Levy introduced Moira and Johnny Rose in Schitt's Creek, a series created by Levy's son, Dan, with a signature style that Moira had and a singular vocabulary. It quickly became an iconic character, and her creation of this character is such a testament to her talent and her comedic comedic genius, the delivery of every line. It wasn't just what was she going to say, it was how. And you just never knew. It was so unexpectedly funny every time. And she earned an Emmy, a Golden Globe, and a SAG Award for that character. The series aired for 6 seasons and it won 9 Emmys. And among other TV roles, O'Hara was nominated for an Emmy for her guest appearance in The Last of Us Season 2. And then most recently, she received an Emmy nomination for her role in The Studio. So there's so many roles, that's just some. They're very, very iconic. People are quoting these lines today, remembering their favorite movie moments with her, and of course, sharing memories. Chris, Tony P.
So Ashley, do we know anything about what caused her death?
We do not. So according to a statement from her reps, she died at her home in Los Angeles following a brief illness, and no further details have been released. So that is what we know at this point.
And looking at the tributes today across social media and just, actors and the whole Hollywood community mourning this icon, what has been some of the language and some of the things that they're remembering about her and the impact she had on this industry?
Well, Dan Levy recently shared his thoughts, and he said, what a gift to have gotten to dance in the warm glow of Catherine O'Hara's brilliance for all those years. Having spent over 50 years collaborating with my dad, Catherine was extended family before she ever played my family. It's hard to imagine a world without her in it. And he added, he will cherish every funny memory he was fortunate enough to make with her, and said his heart goes out to her family. And then Macaulay Culkin, who played her son in Home Alone, was one of the first to share his thoughts, and he shared a photo of the two of them in the movie, along with a photo of them when he got his star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And calling her mama, he wrote, I thought we had time, I wanted more. Seth Rogen, the creator of The Studio, shared a tribute, and he said that he told O'Hara when he first met her he thought she was the funniest person he'd ever had the pleasure of watching on screen, and getting to work with her was a true honor. He added she made him want to make their show good enough to be worthy of her presence in it. And we're all lucky we got to live in a world with her in it. And there's so many more. I'll also share Michael Douglas, her Beetlejuice co-star, wrote that they went way back before the first Beetlejuice, and that she has been his pretend wife, his pretend nemesis, and his real-life true friend. So those are just some of so many that are sharing their thoughts today on her, and including, fans that just love. They're sharing clips of the shows, and I'm sure many more thoughts.
Yeah, and I think it speaks so highly of her that those collaborations, that people wanted to keep working with her, right. Whether it was Tim Burton with Beetlejuice, A Nightmare Before Christmas, Frankenweenie, then Eugene Levy, like you just said, a lifetime of working together. Some of the most, I had literally just started watching The Studio, so do you know, was season 2 in the works? Did she have anything kind of posthumously that we can anticipate seeing her in?
Great question.
So waiting to see if there is anything in The Studio. That I'm unsure of. I do know that when Seth Rogen was accepting the award at the Golden Globes, he said that they are filming the next week. So I know that season 2 was filming. Not sure if Catherine O'Hara was in those scenes that they had filmed.
When you look at her career, 40 to 50 years of absolute brilliance, what it's really been noticeable to me is how she's been able to cross all these generations, from the 70s and 80s and that, the boomer Gen X, all the way to Gen Z. What do you think it was about her brilliance and commitment to her craft that really allowed her to generation hop, basically, and be so popular with this fervor and intensity across boomers, Gen X, and Gen Z?
Yes, it really showed such range, but I think in addition to the range of the roles, every single one had a little bit of the same heart, this warmth, and no matter how eccentric and funny, from the Delia Deetz to the Moira Rose, there was always such a heart to the center of them all. And I think that that's what people really connected with. And I think that that showed through. And I think that the people, to your point, Chris, that wanted to continue to work with her, I think that it was, they could learn so much from her too, from her improv and that comedic skill that she had. And I know that when I spoke with Dan and Eugene Levy at the way beginning when they started Schitt's Creek, that Eugene had said, I asked about the collaboration and reuniting with her. And they said, when you're looking for a comedic partner in any project, Catherine is at the top of the list. And there are not a lot of people who can do what Catherine does. And it's true, and she proved it over the years time and time again.
Ashley, did you ever have the fortune of getting to chat with her?
I did not. I'm a lifelong fan of hers. I did get to speak with her co-stars, though, and of course I asked about her being such a fan of her work.
One of the most recent things, I mentioned that I had just started the studio, but one of the most recent things that I'd seen her in was the John Candy documentary, I Like Me, streaming on Prime Video. And there's a clip in that of her delivering the eulogy for John Candy. And she really, you know, I think we all remember her as being so funny, but as she proved, not just in the studio, even though that is a comedy, but in The Last of Us, she really did have those dramatic chops too.
Oh yes, absolutely. In The Last of Us, and which she was Emmy nominated for, that was it was a very intense role, and if you did see it, it did show again part of that range and the range of roles and the drama that she could do as well.
When looking at this incredible just films and TV, and we all know Home Alone, we know Beetlejuice and that whole series, what are some movies or shows that may not be as noticeable that she was in that someone from any generation could watch to really capture and learn about her brilliance as well?
Well, I'm going to say today I was talking about her with some friends as well, because everyone's a fan of one of the movies. Like you said, there's so many different generations. Right. They either say Home Alone is my favorite or something like that. But somebody was saying that they didn't really watch a lot of the Christopher Guest movies, or they hadn't seen them. And I would say go back and watch them. There's so many different characters that are presented in those. The troupe, that they're so tight knit and they work so well together. And I just loved every single moment whenever Catherine O'Hara is on screen. Right. Yeah. So if you haven't seen those, but you do know Home Alone or Beetlejuice or one of those, I would say check them out.
That's smart. Yeah. Heartburn's a good one too. The Scorsese movie.
Highly recommend The Mighty Wind if you haven't seen it.
That's
it's kind of the
send
up of the folk scene with all the guys from Spinal Tap playing folk singers. Right. Her and Eugene Levy are supposed to, one hit. It was phenomenal. It's so good.
I can imagine.
Ashley, not to put you on the spot, but are you headed to the Grammys this weekend by any chance?
I will be there, and I will have your recap of the big show of Music's Biggest Night on Sunday.
That's what I was hoping to hear. Thank you so much for spending some time with us on the Live Zone Primetime and sharing your thoughts and memories of Catherine O'Hara with us.
Of course. Appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
All right. We're going to take another quick break. We're going to head back out to L.A., the other big story happening right now. There's an ICE protest. Anti-ICE protests hitting the streets of LA. You can see this is live and raw video as the cameraman makes his way closer. There has been a dispersal order from the police, we have heard, for protesters to clear the scene. Yeah. Like I said, we will keep a live look at this throughout the course of the evening. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, though, we are kicking off our countdown to Super Bowl 60. And Tony P knows not everyone cares about the Patriots.
Hey, I didn't say, listen, most people hate the Patriots, okay?
Most people hate the Patriots.
I know that going in.
Not everybody cares about the Seattle Seahawks, but there are a lot of fans out there who cannot wait for Bad Bunny's halftime show. We are going to talk about some of the hype surrounding it when David Betancourt joins us live. We're going to leave this live picture up if you're watching on YouTube. We're going to take a 2-minute break. We'll be right back.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Perfect. You'll be up in about 2 minutes.
All right.
A little less than that. Welcome back to the Live Zone Primetime. We are still keeping a live look from downtown Los Angeles, where anti-ICE protesters have been out in full force. We have recently learned that the LAPD has declared this an unlawful assembly. They have told people to disperse. As of right now, though, you can see a lot of people still out, but you can also see that line of police officers there to keep things peaceful, but also clear the streets, Tony Big.
It looks like some people are moving and dispersing. It doesn't look like a very large protest in terms of this area here. Looks pretty spread out. Again, there isn't any agitation. Looks like an officer here is actually recording some of the activity here, but again, looks like it's kind of a standstill, Chris, in terms of just
right now.
At this moment. There has been no projectiles thrown or tear gas thrown at this point. And just very much a kind of like a détente here. There are some members of the independent press you can see in the corner here that are recording as well. So both parts of this, the policing side as well as the protesters and press that are part of this, are recording. And looks like right now things are relatively peaceful.
Yeah, and we're going to keep an eye on this as we have been throughout the course of this hour. But in the meantime, we're going to head a little south from LA, down towards the San Francisco area, because there's another big event happening next weekend, Tony P. You may have heard of it. It's the Super Bowl.
Yes, I do.
Super Bowl countdown officially underway. But like I said, some people could care less about the Seahawks or the Patriots. They're just watching for that man right there, Bad Bunny. The countdown to the Benito Bowl officially underway. So for more on the hype, David Betancourt joins us now live. David is the sports memorabilia and collectible editor for The Athletic. He's also the host of the Blurs in the Attic podcast. David, also, I consider you a good friend of mine, even though technically we have never met in person. So,
wow,
I'm a huge fan,
cool.
and I have just been looking for an excuse to have you on this show. So I very much appreciate you making the time for us here tonight.
Our friendship is very virtual and has been over the years. It started on Twitter, which is now X, and we've transferred from Twitter to text messages, but we'll meet in person one day.
We will meet in person one day.
Great.
And if people wonder what we've had to bond over, just look behind him right now, and it's basically everything you see on the wall back there.
That is a great range.
Thank you. This is the office setup. At The Athletic, it's I work from home, so I work here in my attic.
Nice.
Remodel it into an office. Is also where I do my Blurs in the Attic podcast with Jay Wadari Coker, the creator of Luke Cage. So behind me is more or less my personalities. A lot of superheroes, a lot of sports, which are the two things I love the most.
Love that.
Also, the flag that's right over your shoulder, too. That's part of your personality, too, David, because you are Puerto Rican, as is Bad Bunny, and I know you are a huge fan of his. We need to establish that. So is it safe to say that you're excited for this halftime show?
I'm very excited, and yes, I am Puerto Rican and proud of it. My father is Puerto Rican. His parents were both born in Puerto Rico. My grandfather in Mayagüez, my grandmother in Cialis. When you're raised Puerto Rican in the United States, it's all about pride and who you are and being proud of that island. And obviously I have the flag here. That's part of my personality as well. But extremely excited for the Benito Bowl. And excited to give a little coverage to it. In my family, my sister Bianca's a journalist as well. When Bad Bunny was on the cover of Harper's Bazaar, my sister Bianca actually wrote that story. So this is finally my time to add a little bit to the Benito journalism trials of our family.
When looking at this moment, this is a very historic halftime show, what it's going to mean for the game as well as the culture in the country. What kind of impact do you think the show is going to have creatively as well as on the game and just everybody coming together to see this show?
One of the biggest impact I think that there's going to be with the Bad Bunny halftime show, and also something that's been a little controversial with the announcement that he's going to perform, is this isn't the first time we've had Latino artists. Most recently we can remember Jennifer Lopez and Shakira teamed up for a halftime performance. But what Bad Bunny represents is really the first time previously in Latin America, when you reach the apex of pop culture in Latin America, the next step is generally always the English album to cross over into the quote-unquote mainstream. Bad Bunny has made it clear that he has no intention of ever doing that. All of his albums have always been in Spanish. That's what he's going to be performing when he performs at the Super Bowl this year. He's very unapologetic about it. He's very proud of his culture and what the album represents. And this is going to be a first, a performer performing the Super Bowl halftime show in halftime. Obviously, you have a huge fan base and a lot of fans that know the lyrics and know the words. Bad Bunny, truthfully, has helped a lot of Latinos in the U.S. who maybe aren't as strong in the Spanish language get a little closer to learning it a little bit more. So this is it's a very cultural moment. He's very aware of that. And I think people are looking for not just the moment of being the first person to do this in Espanol, but also is there potentially going to be a message with it as well with everything that's going on in the world?
Right. Yeah, that actually leads me right into my next question, which is, do you have any sort of expectations for what he may do with this halftime show? And do you anticipate him kind of bringing out any guests, or do you think this is going to be a solo show?
It's funny. I was talking to my wife in Spanish today, and I said I wouldn't be surprised if Cardi B showed up. I Like It Like That is a huge hit that he stars on with her, and Cardi B's boyfriend, Stefan Diggs, is on one of the teams that's in the Super Bowl, so she's likely already going to be there anyway. So how cool would that be if she just kind of just popped on stage and they performed a little bit? In terms of what I think is going to happen, if you take a look back at his most recent musical event, he's touring in Latin America right now. He recently completed his residency in Puerto Rico, which was historic. His music always has a message, especially his latest album, Debí tirar más fotos, which in Spanish means I should have taken more pictures. What that entire album is about is really the connections that Puerto Ricans have to Puerto Rico and the fear that it might be slipping through their fingers because of gentrification, because of all the changes that are happening on the island in terms of investments that are kind of phasing Puerto Ricans out from being able to own a piece of the island. So that's been a huge message in his music, especially the last album. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little bit of that in the performance.
When looking at the Super Bowl halftime generally over the years and how it's really just morphed over time to really be this cultural phenomenon, what does this halftime show mean for the artists when they come on? Is it more about getting something out there, in terms of new album or a new type of song they're promoting, or is it really just a great opportunity to expand the fan base, or is it more of just a cultural achievement and just another apex that an artist can add to their resume?
As I recall, artists that perform at the Super Bowl halftime show historically don't get paid for it, if I recall.
Yeah, exactly.
And the reason that the NFL and the Super Bowl can get away with that is because they're guaranteeing such a large audience that you really know that, hey, not getting paid, but pretty much half the world, if not all of the world, is going to be watching me. And I think Bad Bunny, Bad Bunny has Latin America on lock. He has most of the Latinos who live in other countries, whether it be Europe, whether it be here in the States. Everyone loves Bad Bunny. But I think he truly believes he can potentially reach a very large audience that maybe isn't into his music, and what artist wouldn't want a chance to do that?
Exactly.
Well, to that point, I do think he enjoys a lot of crossover appeal. What do you credit that to? And I also just have to establish, in case you were listening at the end of the tail end of our last interview, we talked about the Grammys with Ashley Dvorkin. He is nominated for Album of the Year and stands a good chance of winning that, which would kick off a pretty epic 2-week stretch for Bad Bunny here.
Super Bowl halftime performance and album of the year would be, that's not the AAA they call it, and over in soccer, he'd need one more thing to do, but that would absolutely be pretty historic. I think, he's got an incredible chance to, again, I think reach an audience that he hasn't reached before. I don't think that, I don't know. There's so much thought as to whether or not there's going to be a strong message or if it's going to be this big party. I saw you guys were showing some of the promotional video that recently came out advertising this event. That video was very beautifully done, and it was very inclusive. Basically that video, you saw him dancing and reaching out his hand to basically every type of person there is in the United States. He didn't leave anyone on the wayside in that video. And that was basically him saying, I'm welcoming you into my culture. You're going to have a good time. Let's go.
Yeah, because part of me, I memean, I just personally would like to see a strong message, because I think it's an important inflection point, especially the last couple of weeks, for his voice to be a part of this major moment. And I like the video of how it may be a moment to really talk about these issues. But when looking at the NFL side of this, when they decided, to pick him and make him, this centerpiece of the event, do you think that it was mainly, again, to make the game, to help the game reach out to a larger audience as they try to expand, meaning the NFL, to different countries, and to really, get the game to grow? Or do you think the NFL was sending a message about the times we're living in, in this second Trump administration and some of the issues that we're fighting about in America? Do you think the NFL was trying to send a message by this choice, or are they just trying to do more of a business expansion through music?
This is definitely, some people on the NFL side have come out and, to defend the decision to invite Bad Bunny to perform at the halftime show. But the NFL it's always about the shield. Always. Oh, yeah. And this is a huge, getting the biggest pop star globally on the planet, one of literally the most streamed musician in the history of streaming, to perform at your halftime show is a good business move, especially when you know that artist dominates Latin America, where historically American football, football in Latin America is soccer. And that's the number one sport there. This is a chance, this is why the NFL has recently had games in Brazil. This is why they've recently had games in Spain. There's always been a desire to get into that Latin American and European market. And those are markets that I can say, from descending from that market, from being married into that market. My wife is from Latin America, the Dominican Republic. There are sections of Latin America where American football, no one is giving it a second thought. So this is really a chance, by having Bad Bunny on that stage, to get a lot of eyes that normally wouldn't be a part of watching an American football game, period. I keep saying American football because in Spanish football,
the original football is soccer. The original football is soccer. I love American football, but football, that's the real football.
David, speaking of the NFL and Bad Bunny, though, part of the hype around this halftime show is this merch drop that you wrote about in The Athletic recently. Talk to us about that.
Well, if you had a chance to attend, not even the residency recently in Puerto Rico, but any of Bad Bunny's concerts, it also should be pointed out that, his tour is skipping the United States this time around, where he's usually always had tours in the United States.
Right.
But a big part of those concerts is always the merch. I hate to bring up my sister Bianca again because she gets so much attention in the family anyway, but she frequently goes to those concerts. She went to the residency in Puerto Rico. She went to a concert here in D.C., even though she lives in New York. And one of the most exciting things when you go to those concerts is the merch. So you've got the person there like, okay, here are the sweatshirts, here are the hats. It's always a big deal. So it was kind of like a ticking clock in terms of that announcement that I wrote about with the NFL teaming up with Bad Bunny. It was only a matter of time. If you've been a part of the Bad Bunny concert experience, you know that the merch is such a huge part of it. So you knew that there were going to be products coming that not only he's got Concho, the Puerto Rican toad, which has become kind of his like mascot in terms of the last album, on a lot of these products, wearing NFL uniforms, wearing helmets, all kinds of stuff like that. So that was only a matter of time, and it's really exciting. I think they did a great job of being inclusive of all 32 teams, not just the two teams, the Seahawks and Patriots, that are in the Super Bowl. So if you're a fan of Bad Bunny and you're a fan of the NFL, there's, right now an NFL product with not only his Toad logo, but your team logo on the back.
Is that your way of telling us you got a burgundy and gold Concho sweatshirt coming your way?
I do.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
They got a little too much of my money.
If the Patriots win, I may have to buy 5 of them. Yeah. So you can just, to keep have good luck with that. And I'll tell you, as someone who likes Bad Bunny's music, if the Pats win and he's the halftime show, I will become a mega fan, because
it is so funny listening to Boston fans who, let's face it, suffered for so long. But once they got a taste of winning, they can't get enough of it,
Well, in the last 6 years.
Won enough?
Well, no, there's a great meme going on around online, the old SpongeBob episode where they put SpongeBob and Patrick in the jail for 5 seconds.
Yes.
And they go like, all right, time's up.
Like
that's right. Like the 6-year gap is like, all right, you can't do the time, don't do the crime. It's like 6 years, you're up, you're done. Oh my God, it's going to be an incredible game. Just my final quick question: when looking at a merch drop like this, and we always know the light show, the immersive experience of this show that ties to the music, Are there certain things that you would expect from a visual perspective or a structure of the performance that you've seen from other concerts that Bad Bunny has done that could be brought to the Super Bowl?
I think there's going to be a lot of Puerto Rican culture on display in terms of the dance, in terms of the sounds, in terms of the songs selected, in terms of the wardrobe, in terms of the hats, and in terms of everything. He really did such an incredible job with the Puerto Rico residency, putting all of Puerto Rico's culture on display. And now with the chance to do that for the world, it's going to be a very exciting time for Puerto Ricans and the island of Puerto Rico.
David, can I put you on the spot for a minute and just kind of nerd out about some other pop culture stuff that I know you will matter to you?
You know I'm down for that.
This is fun.
Okay. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the
It's coming back to theaters.
Coming back to theaters. Is it really been 35 years?
No comment.
No comment.
This is your group chat. I can imagine this is what the group chat and the DMs are like.
Group chat. Listen,
So I'm a huge Ninja Turtles fan from the original cartoon, the original movies. My favorite is the first movie, but I understand, the Secret of the Ooze has hit the 35-year mark. That's something to celebrate. They did the same thing for the first movie when the first movie hit its 35th anniversary. It's going to be great to see it on the big screen again. And even though my favorite is the first one, I'm still very excited.
That was 1989, right? Was it 89 or 90?
That's an excellent question.
I think it might have been 89, maybe.
Either 89 or 90.
Yeah.
Okay, we could debate all day whether 1 or 2 is better, and I understand the argument, but Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, does feature... that's the one with Vanilla Ice, right?
Oh,
go
God.
Ninja,
Yes,
go
Ninja, go Ninja, go.
Yeah.
Vanilla
that
Ice
is burned into my brain.
Was that his second hit?
I don't know if that
Vanilla
one counts as a hit.
Vanilla Ice with the one hit. Sorry, I'm not throwing shade at Vanilla Ice, but I mean, I think he deserves some shade.
You know what's funny? At 10, 11 years old, I didn't think it actually came off as kind of cool, although it was funny because you can tell that it was filmed at the height of his fame, and then by the time the movie came out, you're kind of like, is this cool or not? But
right, he kind of was viral before it was viral.
It was
and it just
debatable at that point. All right, the other thing we can nerd out about, because you recommended this to me, and I'm looking forward to starting it on my overnight shift. Wonder Man, streaming now on Disney Plus.
Wonder Man. First of all, Marvel Studios has been getting a lot of flack. They've had this in the can for a while, and there are a lot of people complaining that they haven't done a great job promoting it in terms of how they normally treat their shows and their movies. Also, they dumped all 8 episodes. They normally never do that. Usually, especially with the Disney Plus releases, you have to wait week to week. So this was a rare moment for a Marvel TV show on Disney Plus where you could binge the whole thing in one sitting. Each episode is only about 30-something minutes. I thought it was fantastic. Yaya and Ben Kingsley were amazing. It's funny, when Yaya did Watchmen, that was back when I was a comic book culture reporter at the Washington Post, and I did a feature on him because, spoiler alert, it was a big reveal that in Watchmen he was Dr. Manhattan. But I actually went back and reread that story that I wrote just because I was so happy for Yaya. This is a great moment for him. I think he's going to be an integral part of the MCU. I think they nailed it. It's not a buddy cop thing, but it's a buddy flick for those people that.
With Sir Ben Kingsley, of all people.
Yeah, that's definitely...
He's in his 80s, and he's just killing it.
Yeah.
And he's so great alongside Yaya. It was just so well done. What it is, though, is that when Marvel shows get the critical acclaim, it's usually because they veer away from the super, and it's more so just a show. As you know me, I'm very much into the super. I love comic book movies. I can't wait for Avengers Doomsday, all that stuff. But this really is, if you're trying to dabble in Marvel but you don't want to be overwhelmed, which is what the Marvel Spotlight is about. So when you watch it, you'll see that it says Marvel Television, and it'll say Spotlight. That Spotlight signage is literally letting fans know you don't have to have seen all of the movies in the MCU to enjoy this show.
You literally just took the next question out of my mouth.
So I'm going to nerd out for 1 second about the kind of cross between we're seeing between social media, content creation, and this new media environment where we're just seeing changes every single day. Let me ask you this. When looking at streaming culture and the future of all these studios that are starting to kind of consolidate and come together, we're seeing things now like micro dramas and micro rom-coms and these like movies that are 10, 15 minutes long and all these sketches.
Vertical video.
Right, vertical video. What do you see as the reason for this, based on your history in this business, in this field? And what do you see? How's this going to work with vertical and short form? Are we going to just have shorter movies, or are there going to be more episodic content? Like, how do you see this kind of minefield playing out?
One thing I can say about all those micro dramas, and let's face it, we all have cell phones. We all scroll every now and then on our social media feeds to check on our friends and family. And it's impossible to not come across one of those at least once a day.
Right.
One thing I can say about those is they're a hell of a lot cheaper to make than a movie. And what's going on right now is that the theatrical industry hasn't fully recovered post-COVID. And it's been a real struggle to get people in the theaters, in large part because they haven't really figured out the theatrical release window. If a movie comes out in a movie theater and is available to stream 4 weeks later, a lot of people are just going to wait for it to hit streaming. A lot of people have huge TVs, high definition, are comfortable seeing it at home, don't want to spend $100 on popcorn between a family of four. There's a lot going into it. And we're at a point now, because we have this supposed superhero fatigue, a lot of pressure is on movies like Avengers Doomsday, like He-Man that's about to come out, to really, use that nostalgia to bring people back in. And I do think this is going to be a great year for movies. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out. But as you guys know, being journalists and a platform, like television, where everyone's eyes are all the time is changing. You know where I see the best commercials now? On YouTube. Yes. You know why? Because everybody's on freaking YouTube.
Everybody's on
YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
That's something I teach. I teach at the University of Maryland class on comic book culture, and it's one of the things I teach my students, because even as a professor, I can't just say, well, here's everything you need to do to be a newspaper columnist, because the world is adapting. And one thing that's really changed, and social media has, look at all the people who are covering these big movie releases. A lot of time they're influencers now, instead of your standard reporters from the Hollywood Reporter, Variety. A lot of times it's a guy that did the funny ice challenge video, and all of a sudden he's interviewing Robert Downey Jr. or something like that.
And there's some good and bad with that. As someone who is an influencer and trying to do more journalism, I think real journalists should get the first dibs. But I understand where you're. Like what you're saying with this, it is important is to get the eyeballs from that audience to a movie, for example.
Speaking of social media and speaking of YouTube, though, that is two areas where you can find Blurs in the Attic. Shout it out, David.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I do the Blurs in the Attic podcast with my good friend Cheo Hidari Coker. Cheo is the creator of Netflix's Luke Cage show. He's a great friend. I did some reporting on him back in the day, and we've had a great friendship ever since. If you like Pardon the Interruption with Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon, if you're a big sports person, it's basically PTI, but we talk about comics and superheroes and all that stuff.
Oh, that's really cool.
That is awesome. I love checking it out. David, thank you so much for spending some time with us here tonight. We literally took it right up to the last 45
that was
seconds
fun, though.
of the show. That was worth it. I appreciate you spending your Friday night here with us.
Thank you for having me, guys. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. Absolutely.
Yes.
I'll be in touch.
I have six questions I want to ask him more.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us here on the Live Zone Primetime. We're going to take you back out to L.A. where those protests are still underway. Right now, you see police out in full force. We'll have much more on this coming up on Fox 5 News at 10, at the top of the hour, right here on Fox Local. Tony P. and I will be back on Monday, kicking off our countdown to the Super Bowl. We're also going to talk to the Fit Dad CEO. You know him from Instagram. He's got a new book coming out. Can't wait for that. And, of course, Groundhog Day. Have a good one. We'll see you later.
Appreciate it, guys.